Hi class, how you doing? So, welcome to week 6 already. Wow, we're almost there, guys. You should be really knee deep in your final projects by now. If you haven't started, it's really time to get going and start developing your narratives and your plan of action for your final project. It's really important. I don't want you guys to get stuck in trying to put something together the last few minutes or trying to rush something together. You know what I mean? So, all right. So narrative elements. This is the lecture for week 7, and I'm sorry, week 6, and this is our narrative elements. Standard language for storytelling involves a narrative with characters. We know that because we've been looking at stories since we were little kids, and stories have characters and they have narratives, which means there's a story. In every story, the main character faces some sort of a challenge. Why? Because challenges make the story interesting. Okay. So if you just want to shoot a series of sunsets, that's not a narrative. Do you see what I'm saying? There needs to be a narrative in there because there's no rising action, there's no falling action, there's no challenge in the story. There's no narrative, so to speak. Literary narrative, and this can hold true for a visual narrative as well. You have rising action, you have a climax, you have falling action. Think about that in your final project. Timeline. There's always going to be a timeline in a narrative. The important thing about this is to establish this right here. Early establishment of current situation. So what this is saying is that in your narrative, in your visual narrative for your final project, establish the situation early. What are you trying to say, and say it early? Let's give you an example of the narrative of slaying a vampire. Okay, in that narrative, you would introduce the vampire early in the narrative. Otherwise, you would have your narrative, you would show somebody maybe sharpening some things, some utensils, or maybe building a bow for a bow and arrow, but it wouldn't make any sense because it's not going anywhere because the establishment of the situation hasn't been established. By showing the vampire early, or maybe the guy's in his apartment and there's a bat flying around and he thinks it's a vampire, so he grabs his pencil and sharpens it up, and then he grabs his rubber band to make one of those things, that you go like this and let go of the pencil. Okay, so the narrative there would be to establish the situation early, the bat, what's causing the narrative, then develop the narrative. Hope my example makes sense. That's the best I could do with the vampire example. Okay, and then the rest of this is just, read through it. But basically, that's the main gist of that presentation. Okay, now we have week 6 photo assignment. Let's go back here to our list for week 6. And then discussion forum for week 6. I have got those open over here. Oh, they're pretty straightforward. Same thing we've been doing. Narrative elements. You're going to read this To Build a Fire by Jack London, and then this is really a great exercise because it's going to prepare you for your final project. So after you read this, you're going to think, if I were to distill this story into 3 images, tell me about the images. Okay, and then describe how you choose these 3 moments in the narrative. What is the essential elements? What are the essential elements of any narrative? Can a single image tell an entire story? And what characteristics would this image need? Okay, so that, and then our second discussion is in your own words. And this is this image, and basically you're just going to give us a narrative and describe this image. Okay, back to our back to our checklist here, photo assignment. The photo assignment this week is a little tricky because it introduces a new word. This word is quintessence. What does it mean? And basically, I'm going to use an example that we already use in class, but I want to search this word real quick so we can look it up. Quintessence, the most perfect or typical example of a quality or class. And then the thesaurus, the words are prototype, stereotype, epitome, the embodiment of, the ideal. Okay, so let's take a look at one of our old photo assignments. And let's go ahead and take a look at this being an example of quintessence. And I want to use this one right here. Okay, so Salvador Dali, the surreal artist. Okay, this is a quintessential portrait of Salvador Dali because it kind of creates this embodiment of Salvador Dali, the artist. Okay, and then so if I were to use this to shoot something like this, or the quintessence of, um, maybe you go to your son's little league game. Okay, and the quintessence of a little league game would be maybe the last kid coming in scoring and all the little kids around him. Okay, so that would show the quintessence of little league baseball. Okay, I hope that makes sense. The quintessential Salvador Dali here would be very puzzling, and remember all those words we used to describe this: puzzling, mysterious, um, nonsensical, and all of these would describe in a quintessential manner Salvador Dali. Okay, do you need to know the narrative before you create the quintessential underpinnings? Absolutely. Do you need to know what the personalities and the characteristics, traits of the subject before trying to create a quintessential photo? And the answer is absolutely yes. Okay, so in other words, quintessential, you're going to study the photograph, you're going to give it to us in its most pure form, meaning it's the embodiment of the subject. Okay? Okay, so that's that, and then let me see, back here. Okay, so photo assignment, and then visual critique, and then our quiz. So as you can see, it's a short week, but guys, please keep working on your final projects. If you guys need help on your final project, get with me, but try to do so quickly, because I feel what's going to end up happening as time goes on this week, and as we get further and progress into next week, we're going to have more and more people contacting me. Therefore, the odds of you getting directly through me are going to decrease. I take phone calls as they come, meaning that if I'm on a phone with a student, if another student calls and leaves a message, that's the next call I make. Okay, so be sure to leave messages if you're calling, or if you're emailing. Emailing is no problem. I get to email right away. And the place to go for email, of course, would be right here. And that, I don't mean email. The place to go for questions would be right here, because that way the whole class can share with the answers. All right, guys. So that's what I have for our welcome to week 6 and our week 6 activities. Any questions, comments, concerns, please get with me. Thanks, everyone.